Hello and welcome to another edition of Monticello Minute Unscripted. I'm your host Keith Wallace, and as always, we're filming in the Advanced Printing Company studio just off the square in beautiful downtown Monticello. We've got a real treat for y'all today because we've got a man here that has been my friend for over 20 years and has been a huge part of not only the educational community but the community as whole when it comes to art. He is the UAM art professor, and his name is Tom Richard. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Well, thank you.
I was actually at UAM enrolled in the art program when Tom arrived and started his tenure at UAM. I think that was, when was that?
97.
97. Yeah. So he's been the head of the art department out at UAM, and he's turned out a lot of great artists. It's been my pleasure to go to several senior art shows and see some of the incredible work that his students have done. He teaches a lot of classes, but he also has remained a very productive artist himself. Right. If you would, just kind of tell our viewers that may not know you a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and a little bit about your artistic journey.
Right. I'm Tom, and I'm originally from Houma, Louisiana, South Louisiana, and went to LSU for undergraduate school, and actually paid for undergraduate school by raising hogs.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that. A hog farm.
Yeah,
I had no
from
idea.
Like 10 through 18, raised hogs, and then sold the hogs and saved up money for college. And so when I was 18, I had $40,000 in the bank, and I haven't been that flush since.
I'm telling you, hog farming was the way to go back then.
So paid for undergraduate school by doing that and working. Went to LSU and didn't know that I was going to do art until I almost failed out one semester.
I know how that goes.
And chose my path then, and then sat out for a couple of years, worked offshore to save up money for graduate school. Then went to graduate school and up in Albany, New York.
Well, I've always heard the term starving artist. I guess it's true because you're having to work different things, raise hogs and work. What was the second thing you were doing?
I worked offshore.
I worked offshore. And you went to New York. Okay. How'd you like your time up there?
It was great. But we, were up there for 3.5 years and started a family and said the goal was to move down into New York City. But after having a kid on the way and really missed having a yard and really missed having space.
I can say this, I'm glad New York City missed out on you. And I'm glad you ended up here with us.
Yeah.
Tell us about your family.
Well, 3 kids, Celeste, Adrian, and Joseph, and all born in 3 different states.
Wow.
Celeste is a Yankee, Adrian's a Midwesterner, and Joseph's the only Southern child that I have.
Okay. Well, Adrian, he works here at the newspaper, Advanced Monticellonian, so you've probably seen some of his work in the weekly publication. Yeah. And of course, you're married.
Right. And Beth works for HR out at UAM. Been there for
I know her. She's a great woman. So tell us, I know you do a lot of different types of mediums with your art. I think one of the things I love about your art is that you combine things that, maybe it makes them very unique. One of the, we're going to talk about a few of your exhibitions here coming up. But if you could kind of tell me what you really started in as far as working and what your passion is as far as the type of medium, type of art you do, and maybe a little bit about your own artistic stamp that you like to put on your creativity.
Yeah, I've always drawn, and drawn prolifically, and then became kind of trained as a kind of traditional, somewhat painter. But I've always kind of worked in my sketchbook. And it took a number of years for me to really give myself permission to make my sketchbook stuff my real art rather than making kind of traditional still life or landscape paintings.
Of course,
that combines kind of many different sources.
Sketching a lot out of your head.
Right.
Not really looking at something and duplicating it, but thinking and pouring it out on paper.
Right. And so I'll have the pieces that I show are kind of a little bit different, but usually I don't have an agenda with the individual piece.
I got you.
And I kind of work it through. But then also, because of that reason, I'll work on many pieces at the same time.
Really?
Like
Okay.
I'll have like 50, 60 things going at the same time of different scales and different sizes.
Wow.
So the smaller works will kind of inspire imagery in larger works. And the larger ones, sometimes they'll take me years. Like working on one that I began pre-COVID. I was working on it this afternoon.
Wow,
And,
5 years.
Yeah.
Over 5 years.
But I didn't work on it for 3.5 years. I didn't touch it and stayed in my studio there because I didn't know what I was going to do next to it.
And that's so unique to me because a lot of artists, once they get on something, it's hard to pull away from it. They can't leave it. They're so focused on that one thing. Mm-hmm. And what you're telling me is that you can have multiple things going at one time, walk away from them, leave them, and come back to them over a period of years.
Right.
That seems very unique to me for sure. I used to work out of my sketchbook when I was a young artist. I actually took some classes for Tom when I was out at UAM. And I've got a nephew that loves to work out of his sketchbook as well. I always work better out of my head, so I understand where you're coming from there, but it really is intriguing to me that you can keep so many things going at one time because it would drive me crazy. I'd have to be focused. I couldn't walk away until I finished it, and then most of the time I would overwork it and ruin it.
No.
But if you listen to what Tom's saying, I know a lot of parents out there have kids that love to sketch, they love to draw.
Yeah.
And that's not something they necessarily need to outgrow. It's something that they can continue to grow with and become a very talented and artist like Tom has. If you would, kind of tell us a little bit about the art program at UAM. Like I said, you've been out there for a long time. You've been ahead of it, and y'all have done a lot of great things. I'm very proud of our UAM art program. I'm proud of UAM. I had John Harvey in here with the baseball team a few weeks ago, and I couldn't stress enough when he and I were talking about what a blessing it is to have a university here in our town, in our community, and the opportunities that it offers, especially all our kids, what it can do as far as brightening their horizons. Right. Tell us a little bit about the program.
Well, one of the benefits of our program is that it's small. Okay. And the class sizes are small, and they're really so that kind of relationships can happen kind of between students and can happen between me and students.
Yeah, a good connection.
That's different than going to big giant school where you're in a class with 30, 50, 100 other students.
It gives you the ability to have more of a mentoring role with your students.
Right.
Be hands-on to help them through maybe if they're having some difficulties with something.
Right.
There's a lot more interaction.
Right.
I think that's great, and I think that's something that people need to know when they go into a UAM art program. And from what I understand, it was this way when I was out there, and I believe it's still this way now.
Right.
The art program has non-traditional students. I mean, you've got young students fresh out of high school, but you've also got some people who may be later in their life that just want to come back and learn how to paint or learn how to draw or learn how to do sculpture and all that stuff. And these classes are for everybody.
Right.
So you have non-traditional students?
Yeah, I have a few this year, and they've been doing really great stuff.
Awesome.
And we'll even help out the other students too,
wow,
in different kind of ways and more maternal kind of ways.
Wisdom and experience.
And one, we're now in the house in the VPAC, and we'll be soon moving into the Red Barn. Okay. There was a Wingate grant that was written to refurbish that space and add on to it.
Now the VPAC stands for Visual and Performance Arts Center?
Art complex.
Art complex.
Where we're on one side and the music's on the other.
Gotcha, and we've showcased several musicians on this show. We want to hit all types of artists. We're even planning on going into some performance artists, which I guess we've had a few already. Right. And even culinary artists. Hey, we're up for any type of art. Can you give me a rundown of some of the classes you teach?
A lot. Painting, drawing, design, art history.
You have a photography class now.
Photography.
And the design, when I was out there over 25 years ago, it was limited on what you could do. But now with the digital age, I'm sure
Right, we do have graphic design classes
Graphic design,
that are taught
yes,
by
yes.
adjuncts.
And a lot of people, that's an interesting field for a lot of people.
Right.
So much of what we see now is graphically designed. So that's great to know. Now, obviously, if people want to enroll in classes, they know to go to the UAM website, and it'll take them where they need to go to find out about tuition and how to enroll in classes.
Right.
But if somebody just wanted to support our local art program and support university arts, where would they go to do that? Is there a donor page or anything that they could log on to support
it's not
the art?
like it would just go into the whole overall.
Okay. No specific place to go.
Well, and a number of years ago, 5, 6 years ago, Mr. Teague, who he donated $100,000 to the art program that had to be used specifically for equipment.
Yeah.
And so when we move into the Red Barn, we'll be able to have the ability to buy some new and different equipment.
Yeah, the barn's so much bigger, very spacious. A lot of different opportunities there. Now, when do you think that's going to happen? You say maybe next spring?
Next spring is the plan. And but with construction, everybody knows how that
could be
kind of goes.
setbacks. If anybody would like to see some of the art now, or coming up this fall, you can go to the VPAC, which is right there on campus, and you can also go to the UAM library. The art students display art inside the UAM library. There's probably been some senior exhibitions this spring.
Yeah, we have a glass block gallery in the library one really unique aspect about the UAM art program is that every senior takes a senior thesis course.
Okay.
And they get to have a solo exhibition. Now,
nice.
Other larger schools, everyone that's graduating gets lumped into one exhibition. So a senior might only have one piece in their final senior show, but they get to have pieces that's just their work.
Nice.
And it's a lot of work, and that's happens in the glass block gallery usually.
Okay.
And we also have a visiting artist program where we invite artists to come in and
exhibit
their work,
exhibits. Yeah.
and then they come in and give a demo or give a lecture or just sit around and talk with people and with students and critique their work with them, so they can have kind of different inputs and I like to bring in people that are not just educators, so students can see different paths of what career opportunities are out there.
Well, that's all fascinating. And of course, this entire episode is devoted to arts. We've got a couple of Tom's students here that are going to talk about their artistic journey and show some of their work. But before we do that, we're going to showcase some of Tom's personal work. We'll be right back with that after this word from our sponsors. And we are back with Tom Richard. We are going to talk about a few projects that he's done over the last few years and let him kind of explain his inspiration and where they were presented at. This first one, Tom, that you're holding, can you kind of tell us a little bit about it?
This is from my Bubblegum on Jansen's History of Art series.
Wow,
that took about 9 months to a year to do, finished them in 2023. These began off of kind of an idea that when COVID hit, I was working on pieces that had multi-imagery that all kind of dealt with ideas of whimsy in relation to kind of dreadful situations.
Okay.
And then COVID hit, and it became dreadful.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, and that's why I had abandoned these pieces.
You had to pause.
And I had actually made a couple of COVID pieces based upon the LSU football season of the previous year, because they were the national champions the previous year.
I try to forget that.
And then football was canceled. So I made a couple of those, and then it's like, I don't want to dabble just with COVID. And I'd put bubblegum figurines in a couple of different pieces and had done some art historical reference pieces that had bubblegum draped over them. Well, years back when Miss Pearson passed away, and her library that she had extensively was donated to the art department
Oh, wow, okay.
And so we had all these artist history books floating around the painting lab, and students were discussing. I think one student said, "Oh, I don't have a sketchbook. I can't afford a sketchbook." And I was like, so I grabbed like an old black and white art history textbook, and I was like, draw in this. And they were like, oh, I can't draw with that. And so I started, you can't draw with it. Yeah. So I took it home and cut a couple of them up and started to paint bubble gum over different things. And it's like, well, let me make this the most complicated thing possible. And took the 1966 edition of Jansen's History of Art, which was the year that I was born.
Okay.
And it was like kind of my first history of art textbook that I had like used. And cut it up and painted bubble gum on one part of one figure on every single page of the book.
Now, when you say bubble gum,
yeah, that's
you're talking about actual bubble gum?
No, painted illusionistic painted bubble gum.
Gotcha. So you basically took a famous piece of art and said, I'm fixing to modernize it with my own idea.
Yeah, or deface it.
and added a little bit of bubble gum to it. And you did a whole exhibition on this.
Right. It was 267 paintings.
Wow.
All grouped by chapter. And then they were exhibited as half of it was exhibited in Baton Rouge Gallery in 2020. Yeah, the first part of 2023. Then I finished up the second part. And the whole thing in its entirety was exhibited at the South Arkansas Art Center in El Dorado.
Okay.
And then different chapters, because I grouped, they group by chapters. So a chapter could be like a total of like 8 images, or in one case like 35 images. And that's been a couple different museums and spaces. I know in the Alexandria Museum of Art in Alexandria, Louisiana, one of the chapters exhibited there.
So you kind of split it up, and it went to several different galleries.
Yeah, and I'm hopefully going to have it travel around and be shown together, or be shown kind of separately.
Well, it's funny, when you started talking about this, you talked about COVID, and a lot of emotion during that time. And I think a lot of art is obviously generated from emotion. In this next one we're going to talk about, I'm just going to look and say there's probably some emotion involved in it, just by this first piece right here.
Well, it's this also was this was in response to trying to go back and rework the COVID pieces.
Okay.
And I was like, what can I do about it? And sometimes when I get stuck on a piece and I don't know what to do next, I'll stand on one side of my studio and just load up a paintbrush and like throw it at the piece and let it splatter, and then work with splatters and work with happenstance versus planning. Well, in this one, I was like, what imagery can I add to this piece that has cowboy figurines in it, has targets in it, has bacteria in it, has danger signs in it. And I was like cleaning out my garden last summer because of tomato plants, and the half a dozen tomato plants tomatoes were still on the vine, but not in good shape. And so it's like, well, let me just like throw these, instead of throwing paint at the piece, let me throw these tomatoes at the piece. And so I started.
I wish we could have been there to film that.
Yeah, so I practiced throwing tomatoes.
The beginning of what do you call this particular exhibit?
Throwing tomatoes.
The beginning of throwing tomatoes.
Yeah.
Was when Tom threw that first tomato.
Yeah, and splattered it and then photographed it, and then it's like, let me work on a couple of studies, and so I started 6 studies, and then I started doing different sizes and with different color backgrounds. So I ended up with like 64 of these.
Well, I love the composition.
And some that are grouped, and they're all different. Like this is Creole tomatoes, and so they were different. There was, Better Boy, Creole tomatoes, Roma tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, a bunch of different kinds of tomatoes. And then now,
all kind of variety.
Yeah, and now these pieces, the tomatoes are now being put into my other more densely imaged work.
Well, like I said, I love the composition. I love the idea. It kind of has a southern feel to me because I grew up in the garden, grew up with tomatoes. Matter of fact, if it had a little bit of bacon and lettuce on there, we call it a BLT. But this exhibit is currently touring. Is that correct?
Well, the whole group was shown at Baton Rouge Gallery in February, and then there's one piece is in the exhibition Beasts of the Imagination at the Fort Smith Regional Art Museum.
Fort Smith, okay.
2 pieces are at the Tom Payton memorial art exhibition in Alexandria, Louisiana, and one piece is up in Batesville in their national exhibition.
So there's all kind of places in Arkansas and Louisiana where you can see Tom Richard's work.
Yeah. And also you can see it on my website. Let me plug my website.
I'm glad you did.
At tomrichardart.com.
Well, there you go. I was wondering, we've talked about the university, but as an independent artist, I figured you probably had some type of platform where you display your work.
Yeah.
So that's good to know. I hope everybody takes this opportunity to write that down and check him out.
Yeah, and I want to also thanks to my students. 'Cause as a practicing artist, it's like we go through and I'll go through how to mat work. I'll go through how to frame work. I'll go through how to exhibit your work. How to inner stuff. And with this, all the bubblegum pieces, I cut the mats to where it matched the location of the image on the page, which is why it's not right in the middle.
I didn't notice that.
And I pulled students aside and said, I need your help doing this. And we created a whole kind of factory where everybody had a different job of the different components, like try to get all these pieces matted and framed kind of at the same time. Whereas if I would have been doing that by myself, that would have taken me 50 to 100 hours.
Well, I think you've brought up a great point about art. It's not only the creation of it, but it's the presentation of it that adds to it and has its own dynamic. Mm-hmm. Well, I've enjoyed this conversation. I've enjoyed visiting with you and hearing about your own journey, as well as a little bit about the University of Arkansas at Monticello and the art program that's offered there. Speaking of which, we're going to be right back with a couple of Tom's students, and they're going to talk a little bit about their art and what they have going on out at UAM. So we'll be right back. All right, we are back with Alexia Lambs. Alexia is a grad student at the University of Arkansas at Monticello. She is obviously an art major, and she's here to talk to us a little bit about herself, her journey as an artist, and talk about one of her pieces. Welcome to the show, Alexia.
Hi.
Tell us, where are you from originally?
So I am from Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
Okay.
Specifically a little town called Terry, which is in between where I went to school, which was Star City.
Oh, you went to school in Star City,
yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did, yeah.
Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You've been at UAM now for 5 years, is that correct? And tell us a little bit about your artistic journey. What brought you to UAM, and what's been your experience while you've been there?
So I received a scholarship from UAM for the Southeast Regional Art Show Award.
Oh, wow.
And so it paid for my tuition for the first year. So that's how I got to UAM. I graduated from high school during the COVID 2020 pandemic. So that was like a really weird time trying to figure out what to do. Mm-hmm. So that was like a nice little light guiding me to where I need to go for my artistic practice.
Little inspiration, yeah, yes. I like it. That's what a lot of artists need, a little inspiration every now and then.
Yes.
Well, tell us, I've got a piece of yours here.
Yes.
That you've done, and if you would, kind of tell us, it looks like the name of it is Good Days.
Yes.
Tell us what inspired this piece and how you created it.
So Good Days was a painting that I made during my transition from just graduating from college and not really knowing where to go next.
Gotcha.
And I just remember walking around campus with my friend Brian.
Is that who's in the picture?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And we stopped in a field, and I was taking photos one summer, and I remember just that moment of peace and everything was going to be okay, even though I was freaking out. I just remember this feeling of everything was going to be okay, and it felt like something was guiding me in that moment to continue my artistic practice.
Art can give you that type of release. Yeah, it's very emotional.
Art
and you say you were taking photos, so not only do you work in acrylic paint, you also do photography as well?
Yes, more so specifically for reference photos.
Gotcha.
I refer myself as more of a painter, but I do like to work in different disciplines to keep myself busy.
So you take a picture and then you sit down and you recreate it with paint.
Yes.
Well, that's beautiful. Now, I noticed that your picture is on a flyer. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about what this flyer represents?
Yes, so Good Days is in a touring exhibition called the Small Works on Paper exhibition, hosted by the Arkansas Arts Council as well as the Arkansas Heritage
That's awesome.
Tourism. Yeah. And it was used as promotional materials for
Wow.
this year's exhibition.
And that's a statewide
Yes,
type deal.
yes.
So a lot of artists are going to be included in it from all over the state.
Oh,
I see
yeah.
a whole list of names here. I can't count how many there are, but there's well over 24 of artists. And of all these artists, your piece was picked to be the
Yes.
on the flyer. That's pretty exceptional.
Thank you.
And you say it's going to be coming to UAM.
Yes, it will be at the UAM Glass Block Gallery, October of this upcoming year.
Awesome. Be sure to mark your calendars this October. This looks like a exhibition and display that you don't want to miss. I'm definitely going to make sure I go to it, because if there's a lot of art that's as good as this Good Days is, I know it's going to be something that will definitely be a treat for our community to go and check out. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so
And
much.
tell us, what's your plans? You're a grad student now, so you're going to finish your master's
Yes.
in the fall or the spring, or what's your
In the
timetable there?
spring.
In the spring?
Yes,
Okay.
next spring I'll be finishing my master's.
And what are you going to have your master's degree in?
It'll be in education.
In education?
Yes.
So you're planning on teaching this to other people, trying to teach art, or?
That I'm not entirely sure. Right
Okay.
now I'm more so focused on advocating for art appreciation.
Good call. Yeah. We need help for our artists, for sure. And don't feel bad about not knowing exactly what you want to do yet, because I've been out of college for 25 years and I still don't know what I want to do. So just keep on doing what makes you happy. Keep on creating. Keep on being an artist.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with our next artist. All right, we're back with our last guest of this episode, Bella Sheffield. Welcome to the show, Bella.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Good. Bella's from Monticello, and she's enrolled in UAM in the art program. Now, this is your first year?
This is my second year.
Second year,
I'm
okay.
going into my third year.
Going into the third year. Okay, so you're going to be a junior.
Yes, sir.
And what do you think of the art program? Have you enjoyed it?
I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
Good. It's always good to have a good review.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of pieces of your artwork here, and they're tremendous pieces. This first one here, I'd like you to talk about. It's a picture of a framed oil painting, I believe, that you did, correct?
Yes, I don't physically have it with me at
That's
the
okay.
moment. It's over in the Mina Gallery.
On display at the Mina Gallery. That's pretty
Yes.
nice.
And this is my first national juried show.
So does that mean, is it a touring
No. This piece is called Bound by Wings, and I've really always liked the more Renaissance style looking paintings, and
definitely, yeah.
you know, the religious imagery sort of thing going on.
Now these are doves?
Yes,
Oh,
yes they
yeah,
are.
I see that. Yeah,
Yep.
and you're so spot on. The minute I saw it, that's what I pictured, Renaissance style, religious
Yes.
theme.
That's
And-
always been the thing that I've leaned toward
Yeah.
in my artwork and such. And then, you know, I picked out the gold frame because, you know, that also represents like more religious themed
Mm-hmm.
artwork as well.
Goes back to what Tom and I were talking about. It's not only there's the inspiration and the creativity of the work itself, but the presentation also really pulls out what you're trying to say and what you're trying to do. So that's a great presentation. And if you're over in Mina, what's the name of the art place over there?
I think it's just the Mina Art Gallery.
Mina Art Gallery. If you're over in Mina, go by the Mina Art Gallery. Check out Bella's work here. What's the name of this?
Bound by Wings.
Bound by Wings. Beautiful. I'm almost tempted to drive over there just so I can see it in person. Now, this next piece, I believe, was an assignment that Tom gave y'all of doing a self-portrait. Is that correct?
Yes, we had to do a self-portrait on a stretcher that we also had to build ourselves.
Stretch your own canvas. So the wood framing, you had to build that yourself and everything?
Yes,
Wow.
except Tom used the skill saw because I don't think he trusted us with that too much.
Does Tom still have all of his digits? He did?
So far.
Okay, so he must be pretty good with a skill saw then. Well, that's great. I think it's great to know that backstory, because when I put this up here, it's going to blow y'all away. This is an excellent self-portrait. If you will hold that, Bella. All right, let's bring this down here. Now, this is Bella's self-portrait. I think you can get a good look at that and tell she nailed it. Excellent job. Tell us about what you use to create this. Is this oil as well, or is this acrylic? Or
It's oil. I
It's
mainly tend to work with oil.
wow, you're doing an
paint as
excellent job. That is, the
Thank
colors
you.
are so vibrant, so bright, and the way you've blended the background to where the light is coming in. And did you do this off of a photograph? or-
Yes.
Okay.
My fiance, he has like hue lights in his room to where you can change the colors and such.
Nice.
So we really played around with that a lot and whatnot.
So you
Yeah.
created the blues basically with the photograph, and then just recreated it with your oil.
Yes. And I chose to do myself smoking
I see that.
because a conversation that I had with my mom and my fiance about how, it's kind of a double standard, like how smoking is. Because if you have a higher social status and you're seen like, more wealthy, it's seen as like classy. But if you do it and you have a lower social status and you're poor, it's kind of trashy.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, but at the same time, in smoking commercials, it's glamorized.
Yeah,
Like,
in movies
you
a lot
know,
of times.
yeah.
Of course, that's very cultural. The culture has changed so much. If you look back decades ago, smoking had a total different type of image than it does now.
Yeah.
So
You can do it anywhere.
Including that in your self-portrait, I think that was a very interesting thing to do. And I feel like self-portraits are so hard.
They
They're
are.
the hardest thing. I had to do one when I was in high school, and it was so hard for me to do because we all see ourselves differently than other people see us.
Yes.
So when it comes out of our head how we're supposed to look, a lot of times it may not look like ourselves to other people, but that's why they call it a self-portrait. We're trying to define ourselves, and I think you've done a great job.
Well, thank you.
This one I actually saw when I was visiting the art center the other day for the art sale. The art students had an art sale and sold several of their pieces, and Tom took me on a tour around, and I saw this one hanging, and I was very taken with it. But there was so much great art for sale. Next time you hear about art sale at UAM, definitely go, because there's so much great art out there and so many great artists. Well, I appreciate you bringing this in, Bella, and I know you've got some time left out there, and you're going to continue to create and continue to work. Thank you for coming in.
And thank you for having me.
We'll be right back with our close, and thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for another episode of Monticello Minute Unscripted. As always, we appreciate your continued support of this project. We're going to continue to bring more episodes. We've really enjoyed showcasing and spotlighting the artists from UAM this time. We hope you've enjoyed that. We're going to have more artists on as well as more people in the community. Again, we want to thank our corporate sponsors, Monticello Chevrolet GMC, and also Arkansas Superior Federal Credit Union. We look forward to seeing you next time.